Well, today is Monday, November the 8th, and I come out here this morning to get a few tools, actually a bar, out of my toolbox, and I could see daylight. When I walked in, the floor didn't feel right, and I could see daylight down through there, the base of the wall, which wasn't there yesterday after we lifted the building. As you've seen, I walked around the building, we looked at all sides, and everything was okay. So sometime during the night, keep in mind that this side here has my toolboxes, and you can see they're sitting cockeyed now because the floor takes a dive. There's probably 1,200 pounds of tools in all those toolboxes there, and then there's another toolbox there, and then there's bins of nuts and bolts and tools and safety chains for trailers up there, and all kinds of heavy stuff. And then there's bins of pipe fittings and sprockets and sprocket chains and everything else on the floor under there. Big jackhammer, acetylene tanks, all kinds of stuff. Pails of oil on this side. So I walked over to this side here, and there was a berm of dirt there, but I could see exactly what has happened here. The treated 2x6 is rotted out. You can see the rot right there, and then you can see the rot right there. And what I've done is I've dug it all out so I could get that piece of steel under there for now. And I've dug it out in a trench so I can get this dangerous farm jack, which I hate using because they will kill you. They're so dangerous. But I can't use the boom truck to lift it, because if I put that bracket under that one broken 2x6 and the angle that I have to pull on because of the eaves, it'll just tear it out of there. So I have to try and put the jackhaul jack in there and lift it back up into place, but I have to take the sawzall right there first of all and cut the nails off on the wall. I put a few screws in the sheeting just to hold it down so I can see what I'm doing. Then once I get it jacked up into place, I'll block it, and then I'll take the screws out of the sheeting and I'll pull it back just enough that I can get in there to put some big number 10 4-inch long screws in there back into the floor. And then what I'll do next summer when I rent the mini excavator is I'll dig this whole side out down 4 feet, and I'll do the same thing on the other side and across the front. And I'll do it down this side as well, but I'll have to dig a little bit from that end over there, and then dig the rest from this end. And I'll dig it down 4 feet, and I'll form it up on the outside, just 3-4 inches from the wall, and I'll pour a footing down for the whole building to sit on. And that'll just leave this back wall here, which only has the air compressor on it. Someday, if I get the energy to clean all the junk out of there, I'll do the same thing with that. I might even do it when I get the excavator. I don't know. Maybe I'll get it cleaned up before I do it. And I'll pour a footing 4 feet down so this building never moves again, because this houses my hydro service. So I don't like that it's moving around. And our frost line is 7 feet around here, but 4 feet will be good enough for this building. And then I'll just pour it right up to the lumber. I'll jack it up to get the blocks out from underneath it. And I'll put steel pipes with 6-inch feet plate welded on the ends of them, both ends, and I'll put it down in the hole and as a leg to hold it up. And I'll have to do the same thing here in the middle to hold it up while I pour the concrete. And then just pour the concrete right up and up above the 2x6s even a little bit. And when I dig it out, there'll be a wall of dirt on the inside, so I won't need any forming there. But being the bucket is 24 inches wide, I don't want to pour a 24-inch wide footing. You know, a 6-inch wide footing is lots. So 6 or 8 inch. And when my ex-brother-in-law built this building for me back in, or no, it wasn't my ex-brother-in-law, it was my cousin. I wasn't married at the time. Built this for me back in 1986, no, 88. I thought he put a double 2x6 all the way around, but it seems there's only a double 2x6 on the front here and probably on the back. But it's only a single one here. And it appears to have rotted from the time it's been sunk in the ground. So sometime during the night it broke loose, because as you've seen in the video today that went up this morning, when we walked around everything was fine, and so it broke sometime during the night. And being that 2x6 doesn't look too good, I'm going to dig that down where we had the hook, and I'm going to put I got a whole bunch of cinder blocks around here. I'll put a cinder block down in there before I backfill this in to support this front edge. Even though it's a double one, but I see like it's rotted on this outside one is rotted. I don't know how bad the inside one is. It must be okay because it lifted the building fine. That hole in the building is from my forks when I was trying to lift the building, and I got a bit stuck, and the forks were digging in the ground and I couldn't get them out, and I yanked it out with the boom truck, and when the forks came out they just gouged into the wall. But anyway, that's what I found this morning. One thing after another. It screwed up my plans what I was going to do today and work on those tire chains for that forklift, and finish insulating the water pipes down in the barn down there, because I had to tear it all apart to do some replumbing there this summer. And I've already got the heat trace taped to the pipes. I just have to, and I wrapped half of it before I put the water tank back in for the cows down there. But I got a little piece inside the barn to finish wrapping, and then I got to splice a short piece of extension cord onto it with a plug-in on the end and splice it onto the heat trace. The new heat trace piece that I put in there. I put a hotter heat trace. It was what the heck was it, 100 watt heat trace I put in there? Yeah, it was a 100 watt heat trace I put in there and it's on a timer, so it only comes on once in a while, and because I don't really need it, as long as the water is running slowly like it is into the tank down there, it never freezes. But sometimes the power goes out and I wake up and find out the power's out, and I come out here and start the generator, and for the length of the time that the power may have been off, that I was asleep, guaranteed the water froze, so it heats up the line and thaws it out, and the cows have water without any problems. So anyway, I dug a trench out here so I have room for the handle of the jack. I hate using these jacks, guys. Like, don't use one of the things if you don't have to. I know guys that were jacking up float trailers that had hydro transformers on them, and the guy that owned the company refused to have these jacks at the shop or on the job site. But this one guy brought his from home and put it in the truck, and instead of using a piece of machinery to lift the float off, he used his jack, because this float didn't have a jack on it. It had broke and they hadn't replaced it yet. And he had brought it from home knowing he had unhooked that trailer, and there was only a machine just down the road, you know, a couple of blocks, and he jacked it up. And these jacks, under heavy load, they bow, and it bowed and it kicked out and knocked him over, and his leg went under the tongue of the trailer, and it sheared his leg off just above the knee. And when you let these jacks, when you're jacking these jacks up, if your hand slips off that pipe, it'll just go up, just, and I've been knocked out by it. I've gotten hit in the forehead with it, because you're pushing down so hard on it. Like one time it was on my big trailer I had, what the heck did I have on it? I think it was I had that plow truck on it when I brought it to town, when I opened my shop in town, because I didn't have plates on it, so I put it on my big trailer, and I got a flat tire. And I couldn't lift it with this, and I didn't have a hydraulic jack with me, but I had a pipe in the back of the truck that would go over top of that. So it gave me more leverage. And this jack was bowing like crazy, trying to lift it, and I was terrified it was going to kick out. But these are the most dangerous jacks going, because this top part will bow. If your hand slips off of that handle, whether you're trying to jack it up or whether you're letting it down, it'll take off and just 100 miles an hour. So don't use them. You know, like, I got no choice here, because my Porta Power Rams, both of them, my 10-ton one, have blown the seals out, and my 4-ton one has blown the seals out. I tried to use them the other day, and I used the small little short 4-inch one to pop the U-joints out of the drive shaft as a press on the railings of my trailer, and it worked then. And then I went to use it the other day. I can't remember for what. Oh, to push the door hinge pins in on my truck, because I couldn't get a hammer in there to hammer them up in there. So I was going to put a little 4-inch piston on there on the hinge below, with a short pipe with a plate on top to push the pin in, because it's the end of the pin is like a wheel stud. It's got splines on it, so you got to press that in there. And I started pumping it in there, and the seal just leaked oil out of the small one, and it worked fine when I did the U-joints. And so I went and got the big 10-ton one, and I put it on the ground, and I started to push it up into place, and it started puking oil. And I haven't used that one for years. But like anything else, even if you own a piece of machinery and it sits around and it's not used, the O-rings dry out and get brittle, and then they leak or they burst. That's why when I see people that own tractors and they use them once or twice a year, I think of the big repair bills that they're going to have, because it's sitting there not being used. And they're just O-rings in there in all the valve banks. There's O-rings on all the fittings, with O-ring boss fittings on the valve banks. There's on the smaller compact tractors, all the pistons for the cylinders for lifting the loader and stuff like that. They're just O-ring seals. They're not a heavy duty packing like on these boom trucks. And even this boom truck, when it sits for 2 or 3 months and I don't use it, the front wiper seal leaks on the main boom cylinder. And I repacked that cylinder with new packing about 12 years ago because it used to drift down. And now when I don't use it for 2 or 3 months and I lift the boom up, the wiper seal pukes oil out as I'm lowering the cylinder down. So a lot of times I'll just come out here when I don't need it, I'll start it up and I'll run it, and I'll just run the outriggers in and out, and I'll run the winch back and forth, I'll run the boom up and down, telescopic the boom in and out, just to work those O-rings so they don't dry out. So I got the jack in there at the angle iron. I should actually have it a little more over this way, I think. So we'll see how it goes. I changed my mind. It was only because it was hard digging in there. It's kind of clayey sand. And my back was hurting like hell from digging already, but I dug it out a bit. And I moved the jack down. I got to dig out a bit for the handle here yet. That'll give me a better position to lift. I was too far back before. Okay, I sawed all the nails off. I dug this trench open more for the handle. And I took the air hose and I blew all the dirt out from underneath there. And see how hard this thing's going to be to lift. Oh. It's going back up in there. She's getting pretty heavy, pretty hard to lift with one hand here. See if I can just place her in the dirt here a little bit. Back some of it. Oops. Oops. Okay. The jack is sinking down in the ground. That's one thing about this property. There's a few spots where come on, lock closed. See, that pin doesn't want to lock. So one thing about this property is you can dig down, some places 3 or 4 inches of topsoil, and then you'll get into brown sand. Other places you can dig down and it just be clay, and you dig down a foot and you hit a layer of brown sand a foot or 2 deep, and then back into a gray clay. But it's just pockets of it. There's one here where the shed is here, and there's one in around the area where that yellow Chevy is parked, and then there's a fairly large one in behind the bale feeder in the back behind the trailer there. I had dug a huge hole in there for a pit for burning a lot of brush and stuff. And that was all sand down about, once the D8 stripped the clay off, he got into the clay, into the sand. He stripped about a foot of clay off, and it was all sand. And then I had the big excavator here, and I had rented, and I was burning some brush and stuff that didn't get buried, and I was burning it in that hole, and it was all sand in there. But it's just like little pockets here and there. Yeah, this jack has sunk down about a good 4 or 5 inches. Hopefully it stops. There's probably clay underneath, and the clay never dries, and it just stays squishy, and that's why the mobile home is sinking, because the top layer of clay was rock hard, and I put, I don't know, about a foot of gravel on top with plastic on top of the clay, and a foot of gravel, but the water got under the plastic, and because I didn't tape the seams of the plastic, and it soaked the clay underneath, and it's just been a soup hole. Try one more time here. There, that should be good enough. I'll get some cinder blocks under here. I think one here and one there, under that steel. I'd like to have one back here, but we'll see. I have to do more digging to get it underneath there. But I think that'll pretty much do it. You can see how much the jack sunk down. I should have put a plank or something down, but that would have meant I would have had to dig deeper in order to get the jack under there, and then dig this deeper for the handle to go down. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go get my truck and go down and pick up some cinder blocks, and find a couple of pieces of steel plate to put on under the cinder blocks, because you know cinder blocks, they have holes in the center and they just sink. I think that's what happened here. I don't think my cousin, he's a carpenter by trade, and when he put the blocks in, I don't think he put even a piece of 2x6 or 2x10 underneath the block, and it probably, it's, you know, it's just like a mold that just pushes straight in because the centers are hollow. Oh, I know I got some cinder blocks down, a whole pile of them down by the barn, but I think I had some that when I took that oil tank out, I think I put them on a pallet, and I think I put them over here. I think this is where I put them. Yeah, I got 2 sidewalk pads there, and oh. 1, 2, 3. That'd be perfect, because 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'll put 2 on the side, and I'll put 1 in the doorway. Too bad I couldn't put this sidewalk pads down underneath them. That's too much hand digging for me. I'll back the truck down here and throw them on the tailgate and take them around back. Yeah, overcast again. It's kind of windy today. I can't remember, it's around 40, 41 degrees when I last checked. It feels like it's cooled off a little bit since I came out though. So, yeah, I got the yellow extension cord plugged into the plug-in there ready for the dump truck. Yeah, I started working on this morning. I cut a chain link right here to fix that and weld it closed. That's what I went in to get with this pry bar, so that when I cut the chain with the cutting disc with the grinder, I could put this pry bar in there and twist the link so I could get it off. The piece of scrap chain that I got, this chain here. I got all kinds of scrap pieces of chain around. I even got pails full of galvanized anchor chain and for boats and stuff. A big 5-gallon pail of it. And I think I got some bigger 3/8 grade 30 chain. It's not very strong chain, but it's good for side chains. It's a long link. It's good for side chains for heavy tire chains for tractors and stuff that I used to build. Okay, later. Well, it's 5:40 in the evening, getting dark. See the sky over there. Anyway, I've been up since 3 o'clock this morning with my back just killing legs and just killing me like crazy. So it's taken me all day to do this. I got the one cinder block in there. I got it all backfilled, so I'm not stepping in a huge hole anymore every time I go in the shed to get something. And when I walk in the shed, it feels perfect now again. And I dug up this packed hard pile of dirt and put it back in this hole where I had dug it out for the